Rebecca Elston-Haynes, the School Sustainability Lead for Suffolk Councils. I'm joined today by Lewis from the National Education Nature Park, so I'll let him introduce himself at the beginning of his session. We're also joined by Jen from the Norfolk and Suffolk Nature Recovery Partnership, and also Louisa, who's the School Sustainability Support Officer, will be presenting on some case studies from Our Schools, Our World, which is our primary sustainability programme, and then we'll be doing some breakout rooms so you guys can have a think about biodiversity and how you're going to implement some of the things you've learnt about on your site. So just some updates from us initially. So we've got, just so you know, we're recruiting for our second cohort of Our Schools, Our World. Like I said, it's our primary sustainability programme. It's a whole school sustainability programme, and we offer 3 days worth of training, which covers sustainability leadership, greening the curriculum, and climate action planning as well. So this will take place at St Joseph's College in Ipswich on the 30th of September to the 2nd of October, and we've actually got a webinar on next Tuesday on the programme. So I'm hoping Louisa somehow can find the link. In fact, it is in the notes of this PowerPoint, which is on the network drive, if you can find it, Louisa. But if not, I can send it out when I send through the recording. But yeah, if you want to sign up to that, it would be great to see you there. And even if you can't make the actual webinar, we can send out a recording of it if you've registered your interest. Yeah, so let us know if you're interested in that. I also just wanted to advertise our free energy audits. So we're about halfway through the contract for these. So we are keen to try and get them in before the contract finishes. So it's any secondary in the county is eligible for a free energy audit with groundwork. And as part of that, they come to your site, they review your intensive energy uses, they put together a report, and then we have a review meeting where we basically go through the report, but we also talk about any other actions we can take to support your climate action plans. And then if you do go forward and put together a decarbonisation plan for your school, in fact a whole climate action plan, including the 4 areas, then we will fund, if you send that to us, then we can fund Energy Sparks for a year for you, which is a fantastic programme, really helps to make you aware of where your costs are in terms of your energy usage, and helps you engage the students in trying to lower your energy bills. So I would highly recommend Energy Sparks. And then we've also got a new project called Solar Up. This is being delivered not by our team, but outside of that. So that's an invite for secondary schools and maybe some primary schools to put solar panels on your roofs, and there'll be a discount to your energy bills. So yeah, I can tell you more about that if you're interested, so please do get in touch. But yeah, they are reaching out to schools as and when they can. It's a 3-year programme, so you might not hear straight away, but it's just to let you know it's happening. Okay, the other event that I just wanted to let you know about is the Climate Action Planning Workshop. So this is on the 2nd of July, which is it's basically happening within our Youth Climate Conference, which is open to secondaries, and they're completely full, so they have had a massive amount of interest. It's going to be a fantastic day, but part of this day is that we can offer a teacher workshop, which is open to all teachers across the county, primaries, secondaries, or FE colleges. So it's at Suffolk 1. As well, Louisa, if you can find the sign up link to that would be great, but if not, I will send it out after the event, and it's 10:30 till 2:30. There will be an opportunity to visit the green areas, a Green Futures area that's at the Youth Climate Workshop Climate Conference, but otherwise we'll be networking and doing workshops with the support of Let's Go Zero, so they'll be coming along as well. So if you're interested in that, I will send out a link. And I just wanted to mention we are again putting on a sustainability and education conference. So if you're not aware, we ran this on the 2nd of April. It was a day kind of packed full of talks. We had the DFE come. We had Let's Go Zero, the National Education Nature Park. We had a lot of people come along and deliver workshops, and there was a big exhibition. It was a really fantastic day, and we're hoping to run it again next academic year. So we're currently looking for a venue, and we're hoping to maybe do something a bit more central, maybe in Stowmarket or Bury St Edmunds. So I'll keep you updated. I'm hoping to get a date before the summer holidays and send out a save the date, but it really would be great if you could get that into your diaries, you know, this side of the summer, just so it's easier to get that cover if you can when the conference comes along. And a major project for us at the moment is to build a website to support you, just to make it a little bit easier to navigate in terms of what kind of support you want. So whether you're an operations person or you're a curriculum person, or you just want to hear what other schools are doing. So we're currently in the process of working with Identity website design. We're hoping to get this ready for the end of September, and the teachers that are coming along to the Youth Climate Conference will hopefully feed into that structure of that and just let us know what they want from that website and how they want to use it. So just thought I'd mention that. That's something we've got in the pipeline. Okay, so I don't know why that says subheading, but so just a little intro into biodiversity, and then I'm going to hand over to Lewis to talk through the National Education Nature Park. So I don't know if you're aware how much you know about biodiversity, but I just thought I'd highlight this slide here. So basically, this is nearly 70% of animal populations have been wiped out in just 48 years. So you can see that there are significant declines in terms of overall animal populations, and what that means is actually the extinction risk is growing. So although it's not necessarily 70% of animals have died, the decline in populations is significant because it does increase the extinction risk. So in terms of Britain, so Britain's lost nearly half of its biodiversity since the Industrial Revolution. And what this means is basically our country is ranked in the bottom 10% in the world, and it's the worst among the G7 nations. In fact, it's the worst developed country to experience such high rates of biodiversity loss. So really significant impacts within the UK. So why is biodiversity important? Well, you can see it's really important for us. It's you know, the basis of our food system. It's actually a really valuable solution to climate change, and we know that climate change effects are getting worse. It's valuable to our health, and also it's got cultural and economic value as well. So yes, nature is lovely. Nature is we do value nature, but it's also essential for humans that we you know, really address this biodiversity loss that's happening on such a significant scale. So what are the main threats to biodiversity? So we've got over-exploitation and over-harvesting, and climate change is now affecting us, but it's also affecting nature in a serious way. We've got overhunting and the introduction of invasive species. There's lots of efforts being made to address invasive species, pollution, and then habitat destruction and degradation. So you can see that a lot of human activities are leading to this biodiversity loss. So I just wanted to point out here, you know, a lot of these threats are caused by agriculture and the way that we harvest our food, but there's also kind of this direct effect of what we eat and why we eat it that is having significant effects on biodiversity. So this infographic just talks through how our kind of culture, in fact, I'll just put this other, our kind of need for kind of standard food types and this kind of drive of monocultures has significantly impacted biodiversity loss, and it's affecting countries all across the globe because more and more they are growing food for you know, developed nations, and that that means that we're driving this kind of reduction in the diversity of food generally, which leads to ultimately taste changes, but stress resistance loss and disease resistance loss, because we don't have that diversity there. So I just wanted to sort of put that in, how industrial farming reduces biodiversity overall. So farming has a huge place in this biodiversity loss. So what are the plans to restore biodiversity? So it needs to be tackled on several fronts. We obviously need to protect our wild areas and make farming better, look at more regenerative ways to farm our food, look at cities. You know, we know that there's massive, we looked at adaptation last time, and we know that there's massive benefits in terms of more green spaces in cities, in terms of reducing heat retention and things like that, but also just you can increase biodiversity in cities. It's not impossible. We just need to make time and space for it. Protect marine habitats, and then safeguard our lakes and rivers. And again, agriculture plays a huge part of that in terms of fertilizer use. Reduce the impacts of climate change, look at our diets and reduce the waste, and then manage whole environments to aid our health. So lots of things that can be done. So basically, I just wanted to approach it from a school side. So my top tips for biodiversity, although I know Lewis will have plenty, and Jen as well, but I do think, you know, we can't ignore that agriculture and the food that we're eating, and where we get that food from, is playing a huge part in biodiversity loss. So I do think it's up to schools to kind of think about how they're catering, whether there's anything that they can do to minimise, you know, things like meat consumption and the sort of diversity of foods that are being offered. Also, in terms of your school estate, it's really worth getting to know your estate, looking at the green spaces that you have, looking at the green spaces you can develop. And Lewis has, or the National Education Nature Park, have got loads of tools to do that. So I'll let him talk about that. So engage your students and community. So yes, students are really important. They can be a real driving force behind creating more biodiversity on your site, but also consider how your community can support that as well. My daughter's primary school, they've really done a fantastic job of kind of leveraging volunteers, and also the people who kind of run the holiday activities to support their growing space. So is that something that you can look into? Are there people that really have enthusiasm for this stuff but don't have access to outdoor space? Maybe they can help your school develop things. So create diverse habitats. Again, the National Education Park, Nature Park, has got loads of tools to do that. And then look at integrating biodiversity, but more generally outdoor learning, into the curriculum, so that you are getting to use these spaces and getting to students to value them, and engaging them with what's going on and what you're developing. Nature connection. So nature connection, we know, can be really valuable for mental well-being, and we know that there's a mental health crisis in schools. So consider how that can be supported amongst your biodiversity work. And then most importantly, celebrate success, because if we keep recognizing what's happening, then hopefully that can drive a movement where everyone's kind of engaged with that biodiversity work. So I just want to leave you with a quote from David Attenborough. So no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. So really trying to get our students engaged with these projects is so important, because hopefully that will lead to knock-on effects and addressing biodiversity well into the future as well. So I'm going to leave it there and hand over to Lewis, and I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. And Lewis, are you able to share? Because we did not check that, sorry.
No, it says I can. So
Great.
Let's have a very good go in doing it. So here we go. Hopefully this will load. Hopefully you can see a presentation on the screen.
Yes, we can, yep.
Let me go into slideshow mode, which means I will no longer see you. So Becca, I'm going to have to minimize you. So you're going to have to talk to me if there's any questions or queries.
Will do. Yeah, will do.
Thank you very much. So, everyone, yes, I am Lewis Langenberg. I am working on the National Education Nature Park programme based in the east of England, so covering Peterborough right down to Thurrock. So you sit quite nicely in the middle for us. And we've been working with Becca and the county since we started back in August to how we can best support schools. Oh, it might change. Let's have a look. There we go. So we are a free program, just to put that out there, just in case you're not sure who we are and what we do, but we are a free educational program for early years all the way through to college age students to get involved with the program. So as you can see by the figures on the screen, within the east of England, we're averaging about 10% of that national number because the program is only in England at the moment. And then you can see that there's 93 schools in Suffolk, which will be a mixture of early years settings through to colleges already registered so far. So it would be great just to get some more Suffolk schools on board, and maybe you can all have a mini competition amongst yourselves around what you've all got on your sites and what different habitats you have. I suppose for me, just to share that where do we come from? If you're unaware, we came out of the Department of Education Sustainability Strategy published back in 2022, and you can see that we are one of the four cogs which the DfE are funding and supporting to help schools with their sustainability journey. So we like to say if you approach one of us, you can get all of us, and then if you have any queries which we can't quite answer but it fits under Let's Go Zero, we'd pass your contact details on to support you through your sustainability journey. So why should you take part in the nature park if you're not already? It will increase biodiversity across your educational settings. Your students will be taking part in a citizen science project. So all the data which is collected from your site is being put into a paper by Natural History Museum scientists around what does biodiversity look like, and to be given back to the Department of Education to say this is what it looks like. So if all primaries and secondary schools was to get involved with the nature park, change a grey space to a green space, we could create a nature park twice the size of Birmingham. So it's quite a big impact we're hoping to have to improve that biodiversity across England. Hopefully it can enhance your curriculum. So I'm not asking you to now add a additional lesson to your day or try to squeeze something else in. Hopefully this can fit into what you're already doing. We have lots of curriculum aligned resources, lots of units of learning, which is already on the website, which you can sort of delve into and take bits and chunks of it to include in your existing lessons. We also have some digital and green skill tools. So I will touch upon some of the digital tools, and just generally we want to showcase what green skills there are for student or green careers there are for students to go into, maybe a different route than maybe thinking just university. And also just generally the improved well-being of young people. So you can see some nice pictures here. This is a school in Leeds, it's Grimes Dyke Primary, who can see who've been exploring their school site, and the head teacher has a real passion to get the children out and exploring. And as you can see, he's also providing the right gear for that as well to make sure they're not getting all their uniform completely dirty. So the nature park has got this 5-step journey. So getting to know your space. So that could be going out, doing a bit of habitat mapping, which Becca just mentioned in terms of those top tips for biodiversity, or looking at what you've already got. There's a younger version for early years, which is Habitat Heroes. So sort of 5 insects and creatures which you can then go and identify where would they live. So one of them's a bird and the second one's a worm, so to be able to go and explore your site in that way. Also we've got quite a fun hidden nature challenge activity which we launched last year. We ran again in October as a bit of a competition, and we have got cornets from Felixstowe. Some of their pictures are now featuring in the Natural History Museum, which is fantastic for the students to see. And then you've got identifying opportunities, so giving your pupil a voice. What would they like to do on their educational settings? Is it that they want to see more wildflowers? Would they like to see more planters in their playgrounds? Then starting to make those decisions, bringing in SLT and a pot of money. So on our website, we have a tab about finding funding. So that'll give you that opportunity to do so, making that change. And then you'll be able to, we have a change tool, a digital tool, which you can then showcase the new things which you've added to your site. We'd like to think that we fit into all 4 pillars of a climate action plan, but obviously, naturally, we very comfortably fit into that biodiversity element of it. So just signing up to the programme could be a quick win for your climate action plan, and then completing your site boundary and habitat mapping as another 2 wins, which you could sort of tick off to say, we've done that, which helps you move along your sustainability journey. So our digital tools. So these are our 5 digital tools which you can access. And if you're lucky enough to have some tablets in school, we use Survey 123, which is an app you can download, which means you don't need to have Wi-Fi to complete some of the activities. So you can really explore that far-flung part of the field, which you wouldn't necessarily normally, because the Wi-Fi doesn't extend that far. So as a teacher, you'd complete site boundary. So that means it's linked to your unique reference number. So we know that from your school, we can see that you've got 5 bird boxes and you've got a long section of wildflower meadow. So that's how we can sort of correlate that information. Hidden Nature Challenge, which I've touched upon, which I'll show you the map in just a moment. Habitat mapping, you can do it with Key Stage 1. I have done it with Year 2 before. It's quite nice. There's some nice flow charts which you can follow to help you map your site. Habitat Heroes is fantastic for the younger ones. Done that with Year 1, really enjoyed it. And then the pollinator count, which has just gone live in the last month or so, as a great way just to get the quadrats out and start working scientifically in your fields or even in your playgrounds to see what pollinators are visiting. So this is Colnay's school in Felixstowe. They have already mapped their site. Caroline is doing a fantastic job there, and that is without any help from us. They're doing it on their own. You can also find them on our Nature Park website as a case study to showcase all of the wonderful things they've been doing with the National Education Nature Park. So the lime green line around the edge is the site boundary, which Caroline has done herself, and then she has explored the grounds with her Key Stage 2 students. So they've looked at it and then they've made changes and then they've added them onto the map. So pollinator count. Why should we monitor our pollinators? I think this is, whilst it just looks like a nature park activity, there is a wider project going on. So we've got RHS Hyde Hall, which also does a similar thing in pollinator count. It's called the POM count instead. And many other RHS gardens also taking part, and many other ornamental gardens are seeing what they've got in their ground. So it's just being part of that wider network and wider community science project. So you can see here there's at least 1,500 pollinator species in the UK, and 80% of our UK plants depend on insects for pollination. And I think it's really key that for some schools who are growing food, that we still have those flowers amongst that food. So we think about companion planting, thinking about the pollinators, and even thinking about food chains in terms of what do they attract to hopefully get rid of some certain pests as well. So pollinator count, fairly easy for you to probably pick up in school, probably on a bit of a whim. Just need some sticks or some string, which you can lay out and make your quadrats. And then some very patient students, if there is such a thing. So you could spend at least 5 minutes monitoring that space, and then you can be doing a bit of a tally to see what you can get. And then we have a separate ID sheet which helps them identify the different types of pollinators which they can see. And there's a nice quiz at the end, which might be quite nice to use as a starter to see what they already know, and then to do it as a plenary to see what they have learned. So I think we sort of forget that some of our smaller insects can also be pollinators. And I know I spent some time talking to some students around ants. Ants can also be a pollinator, especially on sunflowers. When they see something, they go run up and down the stem, they are pollinating our sunflowers to give us the sunflower seeds. Hidden Nature Challenge. So you can find it on our website, and then you can scroll right down to the map and you can see who's been taking part so far. So you can see it's just homed in on big cities here from the screenshot I took, but I'm sure if I zoomed in, there'll be lots around Suffolk schools, because we've delivered a few Hidden Nature Challenge sessions in schools within Suffolk. So a great opportunity just to get them really thinking about what they've already got in their space. You can see some of the categories along the bottom there. So plant in an unexpected place, a repeated pattern, smallest sign of nature, a space with no nature. And we actually run this with a SEMH teenage boy group. and we ended up running it for an hour. They were very happy, just running around, exploring their site, using the iPads and taking lots of pictures. I appreciate that's not going to work with every student and every school, but it could just be a 10-minute starter or plenary activity, or sometimes it might be nice just as a brain break for those students who just need to get out of class for a moment. So here are the categories for Hidden Nature Challenge. I actually quite like it, doing it with staff. We've run a few insects at different schools, and we've actually run it with staff, and they've actually quite enjoyed just getting out and exploring. Haven't done it for as long as we would with children, but even if they just take one picture, it's just making them stop and appreciate what is around them. So I will send these slides to Becca to share with you guys, so you will have these post event, but these were just some ideas which myself and my colleagues have come up with in terms of getting out there for the rest of the summer term. So things which maybe seem quite easy, maybe a bit easier to go out and do. I think there is a little bit of lacking some confidence in terms of getting out and doing some of these big outdoor exploration activities like pollinator counts. So it could be something as a bit of colour collecting or a bit of colour matching. So starting off sort of quite gently and exploring. Then you could do some biodiversity bar charts, so just seeing what you've got and hanging up some post-it notes with different categories on. So bringing in your maths element there as well. So thinking we've got a nice bit of cross-curricular learning going on, and then building up maybe to that pollinator count for if you really want to delve in just a little bit more. And then lastly, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have these curriculum resources. We have resources for early years through to Key Stage 4. I know Key Stage 4 aren't showing on here, but there's only so many pictures I can squeeze onto a slide without overwhelming you completely. They've all been quality assured by the Royal Meteorological Society to make sure that we are in line with the climate education teaching, and also we've got our wonderful partners Learning Through Landscapes, who are also supporting us in terms of that delivery and all the best ways we can get outdoor learning successfully into the curriculum. So that's me, bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I think before Jen jumps in, Jen talks about the local nature recovery strategy, we fit quite nicely together in terms of looking at habitats and looking at what you could actually be doing on your site. So I think it's definitely worth paying even more attention to Jen in terms of actually what then is around you to then make those habitat interventions worthwhile and beneficial for your students. So I'm just going to pop in the chat the link to the Nature Park website if you're not registered already. And also I'll just drop in our regional email address for if you have any queries or questions or wanted any further support.
Thanks, Lewis. That was really helpful. I'm going to hand straight over to Jennifer because we are on time, which is brilliant. Is that okay? Hopefully you can share.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'll probably be the same as Lewis and disappear. So if you can give me a shout if I need to stop or anything.
Okay, yeah, we'll do.
Hopefully you should all be able to see this. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much everybody for letting me come along this afternoon. So what I'm going to talk about, as we've kind of discussed, very much links into what Becca's already said and what Lewis has said as well. So my focus is the local nature recovery strategy, which is kind of what it says on the tin. It's a nature recovery strategy that's very local. So I'm going to give a bit of a whistle-stop tour in terms of what it means, and then how it can link into schools, and then what you can do as well. We are in our public consultation phase at the moment, which actually closes tonight, but it doesn't mean that it's limited to just today. So the LNOS itself is very much linked into the Environment Act, which was introduced in 2021, and every region in England has to produce one. So there are going to be 48 of these strategies by the end of this year, early next year. It's a tool, essentially. It's a spatial tool, so looking at locations and thinking on two sides, thinking about species abundance and reducing those species extinctions that Becca mentioned earlier, and then really thinking about where places can help. So where can we look at habitat improvement? Where can we benefit those species that are really unique to our area and need the most help? It's also about the wider environment and people too. So we're not just focusing on habitats and species, we're thinking about how can nature do lots and lots for lots of things. Again, kind of already been mentioned a little bit today, but I'll touch on it a little bit more too. So when I talk about the LNRS, and I talk to lots and lots of different stakeholders about it, I try and use 3 words just to kind of really hone in the message, and they are opportunity, ambition and potential. So it is an opportunity. It's about letting people know what could be done. It's not a dictation. We're not saying this is a mandate, everybody has to go out and do X, Y, Z. This is what could happen if you're interested, if the landowner wants to engage in nature recovery, if it fits in with all the different practices. So it is, as I say, that opportunity. It's sort of saying this is what the data has put together and given us as the best option. It is ambitious as well. So we know, and again, this is very much linked into the data, the decline of species, the impact that we're having at the moment from climate change. It needs to be ambitious, it needs to make a change. It's also got to align with documentation and policies that are existing from all the way across the region. And that also includes our climate action plans. So there's definitely a link there in terms of how they can be influencing each other and work together. And it's also about potential, because not a lot of this is going to happen without funding, and we don't have an unlimited pot, so we have to think about how can we link those funding streams, both public and private, to actually help to produce this and to do this work. So again, that's another reason why linking through to the Nature Educational Park is really important. So just to give a little bit of an idea of the output, so what is the strategy actually doing, and we'll show, I've got this slide just to go through that. So we have 3 different areas, and as I said, a lot of it is about mapping. And what we've had to look at over the past sort of 18 months is to think about what have we already got in our area. So this is across Suffolk and Norfolk. We've had to think about what's already important for biodiversity, so which species and habitats are really key. And that kind of gives us our baseline. It sort of shows us what we should work on first. But then we've had to think about which ones need our most help. So where do we focus? What are the most important? And then we're going to show where that could happen. So we've kind of got our underlying protected habitats and sites, and then thinking about how can we make it better. And that links into a thing called the Lawton Principles, which is all about making things bigger, better, more connected, and more of them. So it's a key sort of focus and strategy, again, to really think about making nature better. Is you need those 4 things. There needs to be more of it, it needs to be improved, it needs to be more connected to each other. We also are looking at both urban and rural areas, so we're not just limiting this to those rural habitats. We're really thinking about what can happen within school grounds as well as other urban areas. And also, some of it can't necessarily be mapped. It can be very specific to a key location, but also there can be things that can happen anywhere and that anybody can do. And that's what we kind of refer to as our unmapped measures. So they would be things like some of the gardening practices, some of the reduction in pesticide use, for example, in our agricultural areas. Other 2 benefits are linked into what's called environmental benefits and then the co-benefits. So those environmental ones are really things about flood risk mitigation, water quality improvement, climate change resilience. So showing how nature recovery can benefit a wide range of the sort of the functions and the natural capital. And then our co-benefits are those which are not directly linked to kind of locations on the ground, but are more about the physical and mental well-being, the economic, the social and the cultural links too. And we try and talk about this through the strategy, and we use lots of different examples, and this is just a quick snapshot of the things that we do talk about. So again, hopefully you can see we've got our pollinators in there, soil health, so again we're linking into food production, cooling the urban areas, so if we start thinking about tree cover and things like that as well. So I've mentioned the word measures already, and this is one of the bits of terminology in the strategy. Unfortunately, there's a lot of detail in the strategy because it is a government document. But the measures themselves are the actions, so the things that you can do on the ground. And it's all about those things that someone could do or something could change within a habitat to really deliver those priorities. And key examples are on the screen at the moment. Again, just a snapshot, there's so many in the document and what we kind of suggest. But we've got things like the tree planting, hedgerows, green roofs, roadside verges, which are incredible in Suffolk as well. There's a really massive network of them. Wetland creation, which then can again link into the flood risk mitigation, and then those invasive species. So it's not all about bringing in things, it's about taking away the stuff that shouldn't be here as well and is causing problems. So over quite a long period of time and a lot of data we've had to collect and work with a lot of different stakeholders across the counties, because this is happening across Norfolk and Suffolk together as the combined partnership. What we've come up with are key species and key habitats and locations essentially. So there are priority areas. So we have 23 species, which are those which really need kind of quite tailored and bespoke measures. So they're quite specific. But then we have a lot of other species that can be helped by very similar measures and similar actions. And those we've put together in what are called assemblages, and they link into some of the key habitat types. We then also have habitats that represent the whole landscape across our county. So everything from kind of the brecks grassland, the fens, the broads, the farmland, and then again into the sort of more urban areas and even out to the coastline. So everything is represented within the strategy. And those areas that we think are really, really key for supporting biodiversity are what's called ACBs, so those areas that could become of importance. So just to show you on the screen those key species, some of them might be a little bit obscure, you might not have heard of some of them, but there are some very key ones in there, and so like the water vole, the natterjack toad, and some of the birds as well, and the dormouse, which is very specific to Suffolk. It doesn't go over the border into Norfolk, it doesn't like it. We're not quite sure why, but it doesn't appear in Norfolk yet. So that's one that's different and very special to Suffolk. But also what we tend to try and do within the document is we talk about these measures. So we're really saying what people could do as a suggestion again as well. So where does this link into those priorities that we've generated? And I've just given a couple of snapshots from the strategy again, and you can see here that we've put into our strategy to say that we want to develop those high quality habitats in the school grounds and link to those climate action plans. So hopefully continue to work with all these processes together. And you can see on the right hand of the screen here as well, all of those co-benefits which we're talking about. So all of the work that can happen can have a positive impact on these other areas as well. We know that it is really important to think about those species that are really engaging and that all stakeholders want to be involved with. And we have included those in our strategy because we did a public survey last year as well. So we're not only taking the advice and the information from the really key conservation experts, we are listening to the general public and landowners as well. So again, hopefully you can just see highlighted on the screen, we've got our pollinators mentioned, some very key species and some the more general pollinators, and then our hedgehogs as well. So our hedgehogs are our sort of flagship species for our urban environments, really thinking about those garden environments and all the different things that can happen for hedgehogs. So another snapshot just to show you how the document's sort of put together. I won't dive into this too much, but it's just to show that we have really developed this to work with everybody. So it's not only you as teachers and as educators, but as a member of the public as well, a member of the community, and people who are land managers, businesses. It's supposed to talk to the whole county and be able to be used by the whole county. Okay, this is Norfolk. I won't dwell on this, but just to show you that we do have equivalents for Norfolk as well. So you can see there's some species there and how the map looks. But let's dive in a little bit more to Suffolk. And again, the maps that are currently available for our public consultation will stay available for you to use and to look at. It will be slightly different in terms of you can't comment on them, but they will still be live on the website. So we'll make sure that the links come out to you as well for later on in the process. But this is what we have at the moment to show where we think nature should be recovered in Suffolk as a priority. So absolutely, it can happen everywhere, but we need to prioritise it. We need to be realistic and sort of say, actually, if we're going to do something, this is where it should happen. So hopefully a lot of schools are included in this. And if not directly on the school grounds, but nearby, and so residents can also become involved. And it's approximately 30% of the county, which is quite ambitious when you think about it, sort of making a change in those areas. The QR code that you can see on the screen is the link to the mapping, and if we get a chance in a second, I'll try and show it to you live as well. But again, we'll put the links into the chat. But just to show you a little bit more of what we can do with the mapping, this is all of the ponds in Suffolk. So we do have data on all of the ponds that have existed and currently exist. So there are obviously a lot of ponds. It's really key in terms of our habitat type and our soil type, and why we have ponds, essentially because of a lot of the clay. But we also have records of where the ponds used to be. So a lot of ponds have been removed due to development or to changing agricultural practices. But those ponds are amazing, and they can be called ghost ponds or lost ponds because they can harbour and hold on to a huge amount of biodiversity. Within the soil, the seeds will actually stay in sort of almost like in a suspended animation. And once the pond is restored, it can increase its biodiversity and get loads and loads of species in there within about 4 years. We've also found that that has brought back species that were thought to be extinct. So just by restoring one pond, we can have a massive impact, and it will then also link via that sort of stepping stone action to other ponds in the area and help to boost them. So again, just to show you Norfolk's on here too. It's about 31% at the moment. These might change following the consultation and if we take some more advice, but you can see that we're fairly comparable across the 2 counties. So what can you do? As we said, it would be great if we could have any input into the public consultation. It is open till midnight tonight, so depending on how late you want to stay up tonight, there are consultations for both counties, and the consultation asks you to kind of have a little look at the map, to have a look at the document, and to just give your opinion on it, essentially. There is a shorter version and a longer version, so completely appreciate people's time, even if you just get a chance to give a general input, just to say that you've had a look at it and you agree or you think it's horrific, then we'd like to take that feedback, essentially. Okay, so I'll make sure these links come into the chat in a second too. And again, if there's any questions, we've got 2 teams working across the counties on this. So my role sits within Suffolk County Council, but I also work with the Norfolk team. So either of those emails can get to us. Okay, so that's me on the slideshow, Becca. Would you like me to try and show the mapping? Have we got enough time?
I think we are a bit tight on time because we've
That's fine.
yeah, sorry about that, but I would
No,
definitely recommend having a look at the map, seeing if you've got a ghost pond near you. I found that very exciting, this idea that there might be one round the corner. Yeah, and please, so the links are in the chat for the consultation and the local map and the actual document as well. So thank you so much, Jen, for coming along and talking about the nature recovery strategy. Yeah. Great. So I am going to hand over now to, well, thank you, Lewis and Jen, if you have to go. But I'm going to hand over now to Sonia, if you're happy. So Sonia has very kindly offered to talk about her school and some stuff that's going on there in terms of biodiversity. I've got your photos, Sonia. Are you there? Are you present? Can I present it, please, Louisa? Is that okay? Yeah, okay, one sec. Oh, Sonia, I can't hear you. There we go. Are you there?
Yes, I think I am now. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, I can't see. You should just tell me when I need to move on. So I'm going to go to your first photo. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So, I mean, you have to forgive it because it's the polytunnel that is very much work in progress. We're part of the Grow Your Own Potato scheme, which we've got going on the left-hand side there. We've got 4 beds, which have kind of been given over to one to the kitchen and then a bed for each class. At the moment, the 2 beds at the back, I've sort of like acquired some tomato and pepper plants and aubergines and beans and courgettes. So we are in the process of growing those on the back 2 beds. The front bed is being left empty at the moment because we've got Arts Week next week, and we're having a group of people coming in from Realising Futures who are going to come and help us plant up that bed. So they're going to take some children out throughout the day on Tuesday and help us do a little spot of gardening. This polytunnel was actually given to us by one of the parents who was doing some gardening at a local house, and the new resident no longer wanted it. So we leapt at the chance and spent a few days at weekends clearing the ground and putting it up, which was interesting and challenging, but we got there. So yeah, so we are growing. We'd like to grow more. I need to get more greening done in the curriculum, but yeah, we are getting there. So yeah, you can move on to the next one. Thank you. This is our willow tunnel. It needs cutting, I will admit. I have been cutting and sourcing willow off there since I've been at the school, which is about 18 years now. And we use it for a variety of den building projects. We've had several attempts, but sadly not successful at building willow arches and tunnels, but we are going to try again because we don't want to give up. Behind this, where I'm standing, is actually a very sheltered area because of neighbouring trees that are on a footpath. So it's basically nothing grows there. So it's at the moment it's currently full of like an outdoor theatre where the children have used old furniture rather than put it in the skip. We've upcycled it and we're now using the chairs to have for audiences. So they create their own outdoor theatre in that little section, which is really rather lovely. If you could go on to the next slide, please. I can't believe I'm saying that. So this is our, one of the teachers had a large willow in her garden which blew over, so her husband, who liked chainsawing, very kindly cut all of the willow stump up. So we now have this lovely forest school area where the children come and sit and play, and it's one of our play areas. We're part of Opal, which is the outdoor play and learning scheme. We've just started that. So we're kind of adding to our play equipment without buying anything in as part of the Our School, Our World. We're trying to reduce how much we buy in. So a lot of the equipment has been there a long time, and we're still adding to that as we go along. So that's part of our playing field, which is on the right-hand side. And literally just the other side of that climbing wall, there is actually a footpath, which is where all the large mature trees kind of overhang. But I stand out there with the Merlin app and just listen to all the birds that are singing. So it's rather lovely during the day. Okay, yeah, moving on, please. We've got some wonderful parents at the school who are very keen on conservation. So we have got, I believe, 5 or 6 bird boxes up around the school grounds. Sadly, they're not in use at the moment, but I've purchased one of those little cameras so I can view inside to see if they've even been viewed. We have those, so that's one. That's the other side of our playing field. So we have got, yeah, as I said, we've got 5 there. We've got another box actually on the kitchen which has got a camera, but unfortunately we can't link it up because of our Wi-Fi issue. So if anyone has any suggestions as to how we can sort out our Wi-Fi issues, that would be great. If you could go on to the next one, please.
Apologies, Sonia. I was only able to upload those ones, but Sonia sent through a host of wonderful pictures. I don't know if you want to mention some of the other projects that they captured. Sonia, apologies, I wasn't able to upload them all in time.
I'm impressed with all that, though. That looks rather good too. We had Swift boxes installed about 3 years ago, and I'm pleased to say that we now have 1 being used. So that's really great to watch the swifts coming in and hear them calling. What else did we have? We've got, we do forest schools, so we've got areas that we've kind of cleared a bit so we can let the children access it more, but you know, that's where they go and do their den building and just playing, and it's just really lovely to see them out there. And we've also, when I first started at the school, I had just finished an evening class in conservation, so they were very keen to utilise me to create a conservation area. So behind our playing field, we have sadly a very, well, I say sadly, not sadly for the wildlife that's using it, but we have a conservation area that the children can't access at the moment because the plants are so tall, we would lose children in there. So it has to be a supervised visit. We do have a pond that's a raised pond, and I'm very happy to say that we have discovered great crested newts living there. So that's always great when the children uncover one of those. Yeah, I mean, it's lovely. It's work in progress. You just never stop, do you really? You just want to just keep improving. So we need to work on some more bug hotels, I think. And And obviously, you know, any advice on wormeries or just creating more areas of biodiversity so we can observe it and use them in the curriculum is what we'd sort of like be looking to do next. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Sonia. So yeah, Sonia's part of our Schools Our World programme, and yeah, we're very happy to have her on board. Thank you very much, Sonia. So I'm going to hand over now to Louisa. So Louisa, if you want to just tell me when to move on in the slides. So yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that, Sonia. It's really nice to get a snapshot of all the projects that are happening at SUSSN. I'm very excited about coming to visit soon.
Yes.
So yes, as an administrator on the Our Schools Our World programme, I've been in the privileged position of being able to start visiting those primary schools who have signed up with us. So I just wanted to share sort of a snapshot, a bit of an insight of some of the biodiversity projects that I've seen underway that have definitely inspired me and really show the ingenuity, the resourcefulness and the creativity that's happening in our schools. Next slide, please. Thanks, Rebecca. So I thought I'd start with composting. So composting is quite a popular option. I've seen that in a number of schools now. It's quite a nice, neat and compact way to introduce a biodiversity element at schools. It's also can be a solution to food waste, although I have been told that often in primary settings, the amount of fruit that sometimes needs to be thrown out can't all go in the compost. But certainly lots of it can, and the children can be involved in that and responsible for that. And it's just an experiment on their doorstep, really, highlighting what's biodegradable, organic processes, soil health, like I say, can become part of a student responsibility as well. And also I've seen a wormery in action, or 2 wormeries in action in one of our schools, which I hear that the children are very, very interested in and engaged with. And again, just a brilliant visual way for children to understand a bit more about how soil works, how organic processes work, and interact and engage with it. So that was brilliant to see. Next slide, please. So as Sonia's highlighted, I've seen some brilliant growing projects in schools. And again, I think this is a really nice visual and very productive activity to do around biodiversity with children. There's all sorts of lessons that can be built into this as well about where their food comes from, growing it from seed to plate. Again, soil health, how to look after those plants. It can tap into lessons about weather, seasonality. Some schools have operated that with a gardening club. Some schools engage all the classes. They have their own bed, or they have a certain amount of time throughout the week. This is principally in primary school settings that I've observed this, but I think it is a practice that could be rolled out in any education setting. And again, it just offers an opportunity to do something out of the classroom, to engage with nature, to learn plenty of lessons, but it's also a sensory activity. It taps into well-being. It's a space for nurturing. It's a physical activity, and I think the students really enjoy growing. Some schools have been able to harvest plants, and children have taken them home. Some schools have had little taster tables in their canteens that might be part of the salad bar, and it's all labelled up by their growing club that they grew it, or who grew which lettuce. And another top tip that I've received from one school that wanted to try and introduce some of the food that the school was growing into the menu was to use herbs, because the chef said that would be really easy to incorporate. Whereas when there's a fixed menu, when you've got perhaps outside caterers coming in, it's quite difficult to influence that menu. But herbs was a really good way in. Next slide, Rebecca.
Sorry, can I just mention as well, so with my daughter's growing area, it's really highly used. In fact, my daughter helps out every lunchtime and after school, but they actually sell the plants, so through the PTFA, and they make, you know, quite a nice little income from just selling, you know, plants for people to take home. So yeah, another little income generation.
Lovely, thank you. So, so this slide is about growing for nature. So projects that have a biodiversity, nature enhancement focus, and again, plenty of lessons to incorporate into these kind of measures and actions across the school site. Lessons in natural history. I'm still hearing rumours that a natural history GCSE is in the pipeline. Seems to be eternally in the pipeline, but
it's definitely, I think it's definitely happening in September.
It's still
so.
happening.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But also tapping into what Jen was saying, if you're accessing the local nature recovery network map, looking at where your school sits within that, what local habitats you're close to, what species you're close to. One school I visited sits in an area that has lots of bats, so they ran a bat project, installed some bat boxes, came in with some technology apps for listening to bat sonar. Again, lessons on seasonality. Also, it would be, really great if some of these actions could become natural solutions to issues like boggy areas of field, areas that are prone to flooding, areas that are too hot for students to sit in the summer months, to introduce shade or some of that adaptation element. Also introduces responsibility, again, jobs for students, and just that idea of, like the Attenborough Crow, knowing what's around us and starting to care for it, as many students already do. So here we've got illustrated hedgehog houses, bird boxes, there were some bat boxes. The picture in the lower right-hand corner is some very young trees that have been planted. That was part of a pack from the Woodland Trust. One school put them around the perimeter where they had a small border. There's a pond with a dipping platform, which is almost a victim of its own success, because there are great crested newts there, so the students aren't allowed to go on the platform at the moment to disturb them. So brilliant aspect of biodiversity, but they just have to view them from slightly further afield than perhaps was originally designed. I have to say the willow tunnel there and the wildflower strip are stock images, because they are in action in schools that I've visited, but in the early stages. So just thought I would show it slightly more developed, what they will look like in the future. Image there. Thanks, Becca. So this is where finding space for these actions, this is where I really thought the ingenuity and the creativity of those supporting this action in schools came to light. I was amazed by the areas that people had found around their sites. So courtyards, areas between classrooms, outdoor corridors had been accessed and turned into beautiful gardens or well-being or mindful areas. There were some reclaimed spaces, so areas that had been a bit neglected, they were cleaned up, and some exciting discoveries made there in terms of ghost ponds that have been restored, and little bits of history as well. One school in the planters that you see there in the bottom left, they're actually on the green driveway to a school, so they're accessible members of the public, and the containers are there full of water, so that people, parents, carers, as they pass and drop their children off, they can interact with that space and take care of it as well. And that was done with the school in partnership with Edible Felixstowe. So that was a nice area that the school had that was open to the public, that they've chosen to utilise in that way. Field borders and margins, corners, and entrances have got planters to make a really nice welcome to different areas of the school as well. And troublesome areas, which I'll look at in the next slide in a little bit more detail. I was able to visit Worlingham Primary School. This is the next slide, please. Sorry, Rebecca. Oh, yes, no, before I move on, sorry, I wanted to include this clip. This isn't a school. It'd be, it'd be quite a fancy school to have its own railway station, wouldn't it? I think only Hogwarts has that. This is a picture of Summer Leighton railway station. When I was visiting the school there, I was at the station, and I was amazed by the number of wildflowers they had growing in tiny cracks between the tarmac of the platform and the station building. It was really an illustration to me of what you can do with a tiny amount of space. I spoke to a volunteer. They did require some watering and a bit of work, but it was a really beautiful display, and it certainly inspired me. And I think there's another picture. So there we go. If you have a old unused space, you never know what you could uncover. This little piece of local history was uncovered by Great Barton School when they reclaimed an area of their land, and they've turned it into a wonderful conservation area with that fantastic pond and the newts. So this is what I mean about troublesome areas and natural solutions. So Whirlingham School were in the position that they were able to move up from their primary building to their middle school during that phase of change. And so they inherited larger school grounds, but with it came quite a large bill for mowing their green space and a really boggy corner. So they created a wild corner in their site and have reported that the maintenance cost for mowing the lawn has actually decreased, and it was carefully planned so that it could pretty much take care of itself. They have fenced it in, which was an expenditure to protect it from deer and to make sure that children could enter it when they were supervised, but it has taken care of a bit of a problem that they were having in that corner of the field. Lovely. I'll fly through the next few stages. So finding a workforce. So these actions do take time. They do take hands to help. So just a few examples of people that schools have called upon. So I mentioned that the Felixstowe plant is at the front of the school. That was done in partnership with Edible Felixstowe. PTFA, so another one of our schools, has a working bee party regularly that parents and the PTFA are invited to, and they regularly have volunteers that come and help with tidying, clearing some of the heavy duty things like putting up a polytunnel. So that was a brilliant way of leveraging that school community. Another school used a community payback service to maintain certain areas of the school. That did require the head teacher to come in on a Sunday, so there was a lot of commitment there, but they were really pleased with the results of that. And then I put Vertas there as well, because they were involved in the project just mentioned at Whirlingham, where every child sponsored a new tree, and then Vertas also contributed a partner tree. So they doubled the amount of planting they were able to do, and Vertas came along and helped create the plan for the area and dig the holes for the trees and supported the children in planting it as well.
Yeah, just on that, I would just, there's lots of community growing groups sort of around the county. So yeah, having a look and just seeing who's around, because a lot of them are so enthusiastic, they'd be really willing to give up some time to just come in and maybe teach some skills or present to the kids. So it's worth, or the students, sorry, that it's worth finding a local community group as well.
Lovely. And then in terms of finding the resources to do it, so some of these have been mentioned already, but the Woodland Trust do tree and hedge pack giveaways for schools and communities. There's our local Suffolk tree wardens who donate trees. Perhaps you might want to join it and think about having a tree nursery on your site. So some of your pupils could be involved in becoming tree nurses and nurturing acorns through to saplings to give to another site. Grow your own potatoes. Sonia, I think you mentioned that one. That I found recently and looks really interesting. It comes with the growing bags and the seedlings, and then stacks of resources as well to use in the curriculum. Cultivating Change is another. RSH have a campaign for school gardening. There are grants out there as well. Rather helpfully, the National Education Nature Park have put together a page where they've collated all the funding and free resources currently available. So I've put a QR code link to that page. That's very helpful. And then finally, if you are planning some actions around biodiversity, if you want any support with that planning, or if you want to tell us about it, or if we can support in researching and finding out what funding is available, perhaps from more local organisations, then please do get in touch, because we'd love to hear your plans and we'd love to see how we can support you with that.
Thank you very much, Louisa. So hopefully you found that useful. I mean, it's really inspiring being able to go out and visit schools and seeing what they're up to. And yeah, we're hoping that we can develop some kind of programme for secondary as well, so that we can get out and see what secondary schools are up to. But hopefully there was something for everyone there.